بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الغر الميامين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بلغوا عني ولو آية. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to thank Masjid Al-Ikhlas in Cambridge for hosting this event, another very important event discussing the life of a very important man in the history of Islam in general and in the history of India in particular. So Masjid Al-Ikhlas has been hosting these events on important personalities in the history of Islam so that our youth today can learn about these people and look up to them and not repeat their mistakes and follow their good deeds, their virtues. And Masjid Al-Ikhlas, of course, needs support. It is in Cambridge on Devonshire Road. So those of you can support the masjid, and the project is under construction at the moment right now. Please do so. Today we are talking about a very important figure in the history of Islam. His name is Nawab Amirul Mulk Walajah Sayyid Allama Siddiq Hasan Khan Qannauji Rahmatullah alayh. This is a very long name. You may be thinking that's a very long name for one person. The reason why the name is long is because the person we are going to talk about was a very important person. He was a king for a short period of his life. He was appointed as the Nawab. Nawab means a ruler in India for some time. He was the husband of the queen of a state called Bhopal. Bhopal is a state in central India. It was governed by women for 4 generations in the 19th century. I have talked about previously the Mughal history, how the Mughals governed India for almost 200 years. The peak of Mughal power was nearly 200 years, and then came the decline. And once the last powerful Mughal emperor died, whose name was Aurangzeb Alamgir, Rahmatullah alayh, he died in the year 1707. After his death, the Mughal empire went into a sharp decline. Kings after kings came to power. They were fighting each other, princes were fighting each other. This internal fighting caused the decline of the Mughal empire, which was the most powerful empire which ever governed India. Mughals were the ones who made India what it is today. India became a nation, if you want to call it that, or a united entity due to the Mughals. It were the Mughals who made India known in the world as it is known today. Mughal India was the most powerful and the rich land in the world for a very long time. In particular, in the time of Aurangzeb Alamgir, 23% of world's GDP was in India. In other words, 23% of world's wealth was in India. And when the British left, few centuries later, India had come down to having 4% of the world's GDP. This is the difference colonialism made to India in terms of economic prosperity. So after the death of Aurangzeb Alamgir in 1707, India went into sharp decline politically, economically, militarily, you name it, because of the internal fighting within the Mughal families. So the result was new dynasties emerging, independent dynasties, what we call Tawa'if al-Muluki, right? What happened in Spain? After the Umayyads lost power in Spain, what happened? Different city-states emerged, and for example, one of the travelers who went to Spain, he said, I have never seen so many Amirul Mu'mineens in my life. Because every single state, little state, was claiming to be Darul Islam, and the leader was claiming to be Amir al-Mu'mineen. So there were so many Amir al-Mu'mineens in one country that he said, I've never seen so many Amir al-Mu'mineens together. Similar things happened in India. Independent states emerged as a result of Mughal decline. Some states were governed by Hindu rulers, others governed by Sikhs, some governed by even the British when they took some land later on, and some governed by Muslims. One of those states, among others, was Bhopal. Bhopal was initiated as a state by a Pashtun adventurer called Dost Muhammad Khan. He started the dynasty. I don't want to go into the history of the dynasty itself. There is the book you can refer to called The Begums of Bhopal. This is the book. You can refer to it, inshallah ta'ala. It is generally a good history of the state of Bhopal, but when it comes to the man we are discussing today, this history is the last place you want to go to because it is very hostile to him. It is written as a state history by one of the descendants of the rulers, but as far as the man we are discussing today, this particular history is not the place for you to go. And I will lead you to other sources that are more authentic, more objective in this regard. So state of Bhopal was governed by a number of different people, but in the 19th century, it was governed by women for 4 generations, one after another. And this is why it was known as the state of women, because it was governed by women. Very powerful, very able, very shrewd, politically shrewd women. So first we start with a Begum called Qudsiya Begum. She was ruling in the early part of the 19th century. Then her daughter came to power, Nawab Sikandar Jahan Begum. And then her daughter came to power, whose name was Nawab Shah Jahan Begum, who was the wife of the man we are going to talk about today. And then her daughter came to power, Nawab Sultan Jahan Begum. Begum means basically a ruler. It is a Persian term, but it means in the Indian context a ruler, a queen, in other words. So Bhopal was governed by these ladies, and one of the ladies who governed Bhopal was Begum Shah Jahan, who governed the state from the year 1868 to 1901 until she died. So her reign lasted nearly 33 years. She was one of the most powerful monarchs in central India in terms of economic capacity. We know that due to her ability to build monuments. In fact, according to some opinions, the first mosque to be built in Britain, where is it? Does anyone know where the first mosque in Britain is? Some argue there was another one, but this is known to be the first giant or big mosque in Britain. Do you know where it is? Anyone? Which mosque is that? Woking. In Woking in Surrey, a mosque was built in the 19th century, in the 1880s, by Begum Shah Jahan, this very woman. That's why the mosque is called the Shah Jahan Mosque. I don't know if you are aware of it. It has a cemetery right next to the mosque, and in this cemetery very important figures are buried. As far as the British Muslim history is concerned, Marmaduke Pickthall, the famous translator of the Quran, is buried in that particular cemetery. We have Abdullah Quilliam, one of the first Muslim activists in the 19th century, who was an English gentleman who had come to Islam. He was from Liverpool. He is also buried in this cemetery, and there are other important figures. If I'm not mistaken, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, another translator of the Quran, is also buried in this particular cemetery. So this mosque was a very important monument for the British Muslims. It was built by this woman ruler, lady ruler from India called Begum Queen Shah Jahan. She was the wife of the man we are talking about today, who is Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. So why are we talking about him today? What is the purpose of addressing this man or even doing a lecture on him? Is it because he was a king? Or is it because he was an active political player in the history of the 19th century India? Or is it because he was something else. Our reason for discussing this man today is that he was a great servant of Al-Islam. He was a great scholar of Islam. And even to him, the best virtues he had, as far as he himself was concerned, as he has put it down in his own autobiography written by himself, he states that these titles, as far as I'm concerned, are a source of shame on the Day of Judgment. These titles, such as Nawab, Amirul Mulk, Walajah, I consider these titles an obstacle for my salvation on the Day of Judgment. These titles will not help me on the Day of Judgment. But what will help me is the work I have done for the sake of this ummah, for Al-Islam. And we will see in due course what he has done. Hasan Khan rahmatullahi alayh was a great personality because he did what others could not possibly do in India in the 19th century. And before I talk about his life, his struggles, I want to highlight his importance so that you can pay more attention to his life and his struggles. If I'm talking about anyone, just generally speaking about a person, without explaining why that person is important, you really wouldn't like to hear too many. There are 7 billion people on the planet. Everyone has a story to tell, but there are very few who are important. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran, هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, are the ones who know not equal to those who know? It's a rhetorical question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking. So those who know can never be equal to those who know not. So Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, he became a ruler of this state of Bhopal for some time. From the year 1871, when he got married to the Begum, the Queen of Bhopal, until the year 1885, when he was finally deposed by the British colonial administrators, the Viceroy and political agents working in the state of Bhopal. Why he was deposed, what caused his deposition, and other things we will talk about inshallah in due course. Firstly, I want to talk about his importance as a scholar of Islam. He was, or he is, considered one of the greatest scholars of India in all times. There are other names we can look at. For example, people like we have Shaykh Abdul-Haq Muhaddith Ad-Dehlawi, who was writing during the Mughal period, who pioneered Hadith studies in India in particular. The reason why Hadith studies are so important in India is because this was the science that was neglected in India for centuries. In India, the fashion was to study philosophy, the fashion was to study wisdom poetry, mantiq, what we call logic, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, things like that, what we call philosophical subjects. But when it comes to the Quran and the Sunnah, there were little studies done on the Quran and there were little studies done on the Sunnah. Very few books were taught, and these books were conventional books which were generally taught and they didn't go into details. For example, Mishkatul Masabih is a collection of hadith which was taught in India for a very long time. Sayyid Abul Hasan Ali Nadwi is a scholar from India who has written a book on this particular topic, the education in India in the old times. I'm translating the title loosely. You can go and search this work. It was primarily written in Urdu, if I can remember correctly, and he goes through all these different periods and different curriculums as far as education is concerned in India. So Hadith science was specifically neglected. So we had many scholars of schools of thought, Hanafi scholars, because India was predominantly Hanafi. It belonged to the Hanafi school of thought. We have many Hanafi scholars in India, for example, but very few masters of Hadith. That's why they are distinctly remembered in the history of Muslim India. So people like Abdul-Haq Muhaddith Dehlawi, rahmatullah alayh, who was alive in the time of the Mughal Emperor Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar and died in the reign of Aurangzeb Alamgir. which is a very long age he had. Allahu Akbar, he had a very long life. Amazingly, when you look at the lives of muhaddiseen, you see that Allah has given them very, very long lives for some reason, so that they can transmit the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to future generations. So after him came another man called Shah Waliullah, very, very prominent in the history of India. We talked about him previously. You can go and see or watch that lecture online. Then stands out as a pillar in India of knowledge and education this man called Sayyid Siddiq Hasan Khan al-Qannauji. He is the man who stands out as a pillar as far as Islamic literature is concerned. When he was a young man, he was born into poverty. He came from a very important family. His family was very important because he was a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, and his shajra is actually here, which I don't want to read in its entirety. It is completely here, going back to the Prophet ﷺ. Every single individual is mentioned. So he is a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ. And his ancestors migrated to Bukhara in the Middle Ages, and for 4 generations they stayed in Bukhara. So first, obviously, they were in Iraq. From Iraq, because the Ahlul Bayt, the Aimma of Ahlul Bayt were mainly based in Iraq after Musa al-Kadhim. Before Musa al-Kadhim, they were in Medina. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and their ancestors were all mainly in the Arabian Peninsula. Of course, for some time Ali bin Abi Talib was in Kufa, but after that Hassan and Hussein went to Medina. But from Musa Kazim onwards, these Sayyids or the Ahlul Bayt were in Iraq. From Iraq, the ancestors of Siddiq Hasan Khan migrated to Bukhara, and then they remained in Bukhara for 4 generations. But when the Mongol invasions happened, when the Mongols came destroying the Muslim lands, the lands of Samarkand and Bukhara, as is testified in the history of Ibn al-Athir. Ibn al-Athir rahmatullah alayhi, when he talks about Bukhara in particular, he doesn't know how to express his feelings. He writes that this is the obituary of Islam, this is the janazah of Islam. He doesn't want to narrate it. He states that I do not have the words to express my feelings or to express my knowledge of the situation. And he met some of the refugees who were running away, who were actually running away from the Mongol invasions. He was in Mosul. Ibn al-Athir was writing in Mosul, and many refugees who were victims of these invasions from Samarkand and Bukhara, they came to Mosul and they met Ibn al-Athir, and Ibn al-Athir narrates the story that the city of Bukhara in particular systematically destroyed. First, Genghis Khan took the city by deception, and when the city surrendered, subhanallah, it was every single individual alive was massacred, and those who were left were taken slaves, and some survived and they were able to make it to Mosul. So at this time, the ancestors of Siddiq Hasan Khan were able to survive and migrate to India. So they went to Multan, a place called Multan, which is a very important center of Islamic power in medieval India. So what were the centers of power for Muslims in India at this time? And the year is 1237. This is when a sultan called Shamsuddin Iltutmish is governing India. And this period is called the Delhi Sultanate period, or the Mamluk dynasty of India. We have a Mamluk dynasty in Egypt, the Mamalika. They governed from the year 1250 to 1517 until the Ottomans defeated the last Mamluk ruler and took the land of Egypt from them, and the land of Hijaz subsequently. Likewise, we had a Mamluk dynasty, and Mamluk literally means slaves. These were slaves who became kings. Previous slaves became kings and they were governing this dynasty. So at this time, this was the power hub of Muslims in India. Delhi was the capital. Multan and Lahore were 2 important centers of Muslim power. So ancestors of Siddiq Hasan Khan came to Multan, and they lived there for a while, for another few decades, in fact almost 2 centuries. But during the Lodi period in Delhi, when the Lodis were governing Delhi, one of the rulers, his name was Bahlul Lodi, he invited one of the ancestors of Siddiq Hasan Khan to come and live close to Delhi, and he gave him an estate in a place called Kannauj. And since then, the ancestors of Siddiq Hasan Khan lived in this land, close to Delhi, and they lived off this grant which was given to them by the ruler of Delhi. So these were well-known Sayyids, and few saints came from his ancestors, and they have big, massive shrines in places like Multan and in Kannauj. And this family was well-known. So, cut the long story short, we come close to Siddiq Hasan Khan himself. His grandfather was a man called Awlad Ali, who was a very important figure in the state of Hyderabad. Hyderabad was one of the richest states in India in the 18th century. So Awlad Ali, who had become Shia because his mother was Shia. So from Sunni Sayyids, few people, to acquire power or influence, because the ruling class was Shia at the time, and this is another history now altogether. How did Shiaism come to India? What happened? Why in the 18th century so many people in power in particular went towards the Shia school of thought? It is because a lot of the Shia nobles were in very powerful positions, and before they gave grants and influences or influential positions to others, one of the conditions was you have to become Shia. So one of the ancestors, the grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan, was Shia because his mother was Shia. So the great grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan had married a Shia woman. So the son, the child, Awlad Ali, was Shia and very, very powerful. He was directly linked to the house of Nizam. Nizams were the rulers of the state of Hyderabad. So Awlad Ali, who was actually basically from Kannauj, had gone to Hyderabad to serve within the state apparatus, and he was given a Jagir. Jagir means, again, estates. He was given an estate or many estates by the ruler, the Nizam, and these estates brought an income of 500,000 rupees every year to this man. Now listen carefully. This is where the story begins. This is where it gets really, really interesting, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. Allahu Akbar. Happened. So now the grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan is a very important man in the state of Hyderabad, a very rich man. And if you were to calculate his wealth in today's value, he was a multi-millionaire. 500,000 rupees a year income at that time in the 18th century was so much money that you could not possibly spend it, even if you were to, throw the money with both your hands like that. This was so much money. So because he was so closely connected to the ruler of Hyderabad, now Hyderabad was another state that had come about as a result of Mughal decline. Remember, I told you that there were many states that came about as a result of Mughal decline. Hyderabad was one of those states, and it became a very powerful state in the south of India, in the region called Deccan. Okay, this was one of the most powerful and the richest states in the region. And the Nizam was the title of the rulers, gave a grant to the grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan. So he became a very rich man. But his son Awlad Hasan, Awlad Ali, who was the grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan, had this son called Awlad Hasan, who was the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan. Awlad Hasan, who was a very dedicated student of knowledge, although he also had Shia influences because of the father, right? But this was a very vibrant period for one reason in particular, and that reason is the activity of Waliullahi family. Waliullahi family is the family of Shah Waliullah Muhaddis al-Dehlawi. We know Shah Waliullah was born during this period of turmoil, when India was going through sharp decline, politically speaking. Delhi, the capital, was being raided and attacked on almost, yearly basis. Okay, so he lived through this very disturbing period. And he wrote many, many important works to guide the Ummah, to lead the Ummah. So these works were highly influential. They were philosophical or political in nature. And he wrote on, of course, Islamic theology and on Hadith. So Shah Waliullah wrote works on Hadith, for example. His commentary on Muwatta Imam Malik is well known, Musawwa is well known. Okay, he wrote on the science of tafsir a book titled Al-Fawzul Kabir and Al-Fathul Khabir, another book. Al-Fawzul Kabir is in Persian, Al-Fathul Khabir is in Arabic. Then he also wrote on Muslim philosophy or the philosophy of Sharia. The book is called Hujjatullah al-Baligha. This book heavily influenced Siddiq Hasan Khan later on. When we read his works, we see that he was influenced heavily by a number of individuals, and we will talk about them in due course. So this family, Shah Waliullah and his sons, he had 4 sons who continued the work, and the most prominent among them was a man called Shah Abdul Aziz Muhaddis al-Dehlawi, who was born in the year 1745 and he died in 1826 or 1824 if I'm not mistaken. So he lived a very long life as well by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was a muhaddis. So Shah Abdul Aziz had written works on a number of different topics. One of the works he wrote was titled Tuhfa Ithna Ashariya, and literally translated it means a gift for the 12ers. 12ers, in other words, the Shia school of thought, which was very prominent, very influential in India politically at that time. And because of that political influence, a lot of the masses, the people in general, were highly influenced by the Shia thought in India. So to counter this Shia thought, Shah Abdul Aziz wrote a treatise from an orthodox Sunni perspective, and it is called Tawheed and Sunnah. And Awlad Hassan, the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, was frequenting these circles. He was born in 1785. He was a young man when Shah Abdul Aziz was very active in Delhi, teaching tafsir, hadith and other sciences. So he mixed with these circles. Awlad Hassan, the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, was mixing with these people. He was frequenting these circles. So he was now influenced by this thought. He must have read the book Tuhfa Ithna Ashariya, and finally, eventually, he decided that he wants to change, revert back to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Alhamdulillah. And by the grace of Allah, Allah gave him that hidayah, that guidance, that he was able to come back to the school of Ahl Sunnah. Now he became a very, very active figure in the history of North India. From Calcutta to Lahore, which was the stretch of the Muslim population in North India, he became a well-known figure. Even though he was a young man when he died, he was 40 years old when he died. He became a very prominent figure because he went around preaching in mosques. According to some estimates, Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi himself narrates in his biography, in his autobiography, that my father single-handedly converted close to 10,000 people to Islam. Allahu Akbar. 10,000 people came to Islam through the hard work of Siddiq Hasan Khan's father, known as Awlad Hassan rahmatullah alayh. So now what happened to the wealth of his father? I've already told you that his father, Awlad Ali, was a very powerful, very rich man in the state of Hyderabad in south of India, where he was serving the state. And he had an income of 500,000 rupees every year. He had an estate that gave him that income. So what happened to that money? Awlad Hassan, when he came to Ahl Sunnah, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, he abandoned all that wealth. He left it behind. He said, I do not want any part of it. I don't want anything from it. He left it and he came to Kannauj, and he lived in Kannauj, and he lived in poverty. His children suffered. I mean, this is a man, like for example, imagine the son of, to give you, I don't know if the comparison is correct, but Zuckerberg, who's the owner of Facebook? Sorry? Mark Zuckerberg, sorry. And then we have another Bill Gates, right? Or imagine the Walid bin Talal, yeah, one of the richest men. I mean, maybe the comparison is not correct. Or one of the huge, big tycoons, yeah. Imagine one of his sons who says, "I do not want a penny from your wealth. I will go and live penniless, and I will rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. He left everything. Now, while this was happening, Awlad Hassan was preaching around and giving khutbahs and talks and lectures in masajid and otherwise, and thousands of people are coming to Islam through his preaching. And a very young man, he's still not 40 yet. Okay, so what happened during this period in the early 19th century? A movement started in India. It was called the Jihad movement. What happened? Some of the students of Shah Abdul Aziz, who was the son of Shah Waliullah, they received reports from the Sikh territory, which was in the Punjab, that Muslims are being oppressed, Muslims are being ravaged, their villages are being destroyed and burnt, and they are being mistreated by the Sikh rulers. Who was the ruler? The ruler was none other than Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So these reports came to the Muslims of India on daily basis, that this is what happened to Muslims in such and such place, that's what happened to Muslims in such and such place. So Muslims were very disturbed. So something had to be done. So a grandson of Shah Waliullah called Muhammad Ismail Ad-Dehlavi Shaheed Rahmatullah alayh, and one of the students of Shah Abdul Aziz, his name was Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed, who was also a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ. They decided that we should do something about it. So they went around preaching in British India with the full knowledge of the British government, okay, that these individuals are doing this. They are calling people to wage jihad against the Sikh oppressors, the Sikh tyrants in the land of Punjab. Now the British turned a blind eye to this problem, if it was a problem, because they didn't want, number one, the Sikhs to prosper next door, because the British had their eyes on the Punjab. Okay, the Punjab was one of the most fertile regions in India at the time. Together with Bihar, Orissa and Bengal, Punjab was the most fertile region of India, and it was governed by the Sikhs. From Peshawar to Multan, it was called the Sikh Empire. Maharaja Ranjit Singh came to power in the year 1799 when he took the city of Lahore from the Durrani Pathans. And then he governed until 1839 when he died, for almost 40 years. 40 years Ranjit Singh governed. Some people argue that this period was a period of tolerance, coexistence. Muslims and Sikhs coexisted, Hindus, so there was no problem. Others argue no, the Muslims were oppressed because Sikhs were invading Muslim territories and taking land and their belongings and ravaging Muslim villages. So these reports came to these people, so they started a movement. So this is again a movement started by Shah Waliullahi family, the family of Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlavi, his students and the children of his students and his direct descendants, such as one of the leaders was his grandson Muhammad Ismail Ad-Dehlavi. Shah Waliullah had four sons: Shah Abdul Aziz, Shah Rafiuddin, Shah Abdul Qadir and Shah Abdul Ghani. These are the four sons of Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, and each one of them had a great role in his respective field. For example, Shah Abdul Aziz, I already mentioned, wrote a number of different works on a number of different topics. One of them was Tawheed and Sunnah. Then one of his sons translated the Quran into the Urdu language, making it available to thousands, if not millions of people in India. And other sons also wrote a number of different books. One of his sons had a son called Muhammad Ismail Ad-Dehlavi, also a very, very important figure, whom inshallah ta'ala we will discuss in a future lecture. We will do a lecture particularly on Muhammad Ismail Ad-Dehlavi rahmatullah alayh. When Awlad Hassan, the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, is preaching, North India, this movement is going on. So in 1822, this group of people, Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed was chosen as the leader of this group. He was the leader of this group. He was the Amir. He was Sayyid Quraishi Hashimi. So he was chosen as the leader of this group. Amir al-Mu'mineen Sayyid Ahmad, his name was. Okay. And he was a mystic. He was not a scholar himself, but he had two scholars backing him, major scholars in India at the time. Muhammad Ismail al-Dehlavi rahmatullah alayhi, number one, and Maulana Abdul Hayy, who was also a direct student of Shah Abdul Aziz and a son-in-law of Shah Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi. So these were two giant of scholars backing Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed and his movement. So primarily what did they do? They, to undo a batil, a false fatwa, they went for Hajj. What was the fatwa? Some of the Indian scholars gave a fatwa that Hajj is no longer obligatory upon the Muslims of India. Why? Why? Because the tariq, the path to Hajj was very dangerous. It was life-threatening. Okay? And there are so many stories. Even one of the Begums of Bhopal, Sikandar Jahan Begum, the ruler of Bhopal, when she went for Hajj, she complained in her biography, autobiography, when she actually wrote about a book on this journey of Hajj. The mother of Shah Jahan Begum, the wife of Siddiq Hasan Khan, went for Hajj. Her name was Sikandar Jahan Begum. And she wrote a book on this. And she writes in the book that she had two coffers full of money, coins, two big containers with money in them. They were opened and robbed at Jeddah. And as soon as she landed in Jeddah, she was robbed of that money. She was a ruler, of course, she was rich. She took that money with the intention to give it to the ulama, to scholars, to Tullab al-Ilm in Bilad al-Haramain. She took this money for that purpose, to give it in charity and sadaqah, whatever she wanted to do with the money. That money was robbed of her in Jeddah, unfortunately, and she complained about it in one of the meetings she had with the Sharif of Makkah. When she was there, the Sharif of Makkah, he announced a dinner in her honor, and during the dinner she complained about this. What happened? What's the problem with the security situation here? Why are people getting robbed when they come here? And even Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi, he went for Hajj in 1868, and inshallah we will talk about it in due course. Even during his Hajj, it took him 20 days to reach Medina from Makkah. Why? The journey is not 20 days, because he was waiting for a safe caravan to join, because the situation was very bad. So in the early 19th century, some of the Indian ulama, they give this fatwa, Hajj is no longer obligatory because your life is in danger when you go for Hajj. So the ulama like Shah Abdul Aziz and Muhammad Ismail al-Dehlavi, Maulana Abdul Hayy, they became very disturbed. What kind of batil fatwa is this? So because it is raining outside, or if it's a war zone, you don't pray your salah? No. So do you stop praying your salah? No. So they gave a counter fatwa that Hajj can never be removed as an obligation. Okay. And the only way Hajj is exempted is when you do not have the conditions, which is istita'a, or good health, capacity to do Hajj, financial and physical capacity, which are the conditions. And you have to be baligh, you have to be an adult. So what they did, they hired 10 ships, and Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed, the leader of this group, he announced that I will take everyone on Hajj for free. Allahu Akbar. Look at his iman. And Aulad Hassan is there watching all of this. He is the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan is there. He said, I will take everyone on Hajj free of charge, fi sabilillah, to undo this fatwa, to counter this fatwa practically. They were not a bunch of talkers, not a bunch of people who were just like delivering speeches. No, they were practical people. They said, okay, the fatwa has come, we will undo it by action. We will go for Hajj, and we will not go one or two or three people. We will take a fauj, an army with us of people. So he announced, and the man, he was Darwesh. Darwesh means like Zahid. He was a mystic, Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed. He doesn't have a penny in his pocket. And what is he telling the Muslims of India? From Calcutta to Lahore, he is announcing, anyone who wants to go for Hajj, come and join me. Allahu Akbar. What happens when he announces? The princes, the businessmen, the rich people, the landholders, All of them, they bring their gold coins and their money, and they pour the money in his feet. Here, Sayyid, Shaykh, take the money, take as many people on Hajj. You have announced it, Tawakkal Allah, because he's not a rich man, he's not a king, right? But he announced it, Tawakkal Allah, that I will pay the expenses. He doesn't have a penny. And the people are coming and joining, Allahu Akbar, free Hajj. So they came and joined him. And then the rich men, they supported, they funded the Hajj. So they hired 10 ships, Allahu Akbar. 10 ships they hired, and they went for Hajj. And it took them a long time during the Hajj. This is another story which we will discuss inshallah ta'ala in another sitting. We can do a lecture on this very movement, the movement of Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed and Shah Ismail Shaheed, two individuals, towering individuals in the history of India, who directly inspired people like Siddiq Hasan Khan through their action and sincerity and dedication to Islam. People like Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed and people like Shah Ismail Shaheed Ad-Dehlawi Rahmatullah alayhima, both of them. So during this journey to Hajj, one of the daughters-in-law of Shah Waliullah, the mother of Muhammad Ismail Ad-Dehlawi Rahmatullah alayh, died during the Hajj, during this journey, in the ship. She died in the ship. Hajj at that time, imagine, it would take them at least, normally, under normal circumstances, it would be a 1-year prospect. It is a 1-year enterprise. My direct ancestor went for Hajj. My great-grandfather's father, he went on foot. Any foot means ship and camels and horses and donkeys and walking. He came back years later. When he came to his house, he knocked the door. His own wife, she couldn't recognize him. When he walked inside, she started to cover herself. Who's this man walking inside? He said, it's me. It's me, your husband. Allahu Akbar. So he came back a completely different man because of the fatigue and the difficulty of the journey. This was Iman. These people went for Hajj, they gave their lives. They would die on Hajj. Subhanallah, when this woman, Sikandar Jahan Begum I was talking about, who was robbed in Jeddah of her money, 8 people who went with her from her entourage, they died on this journey. Allahu Akbar. So these people, they had this kind of Iman. So Aulad Hassan was mixing with this movement. So they came back for Hajj, from Hajj. These same people, fully charged with Iman and Taqwa, they went around and they were doing speeches and talks, asking people to join them to launch a campaign against the Sikh tyranny, so that they can launch this campaign of jihad from the northern parts of the northwestern part of India. So they went to Afghanistan, okay, and they got the Pashtun tribes together to join them, and then they launched a campaign. That's another history in itself, which we can discuss. What happened to that movement? What were the effects of that movement? Who was involved? Was it the right thing to do? Was it the wrong thing to do? These things we can discuss in another sitting. Aulad Hassan, he went as far as Afghanistan with Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed, and then he came back to do his services, to take care of his family, probably whatever the problem was, he came back. Rahmatullah alayh. And he was a very important figure for this reason. Not because his father was a multi-millionaire, because he was a very, very prominent figure Islamically in India. He died very young, at the age of 40. And Siddiq Hasan Khan was born, his son, Rahmatullah alayh, in the year 1832. When? The year 1832. When he was 5, in 1837, his father died. He became yatim, orphan. And when Aulad Hassan was with Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed in his movement, one of the biographers of Siddiq Hasan Khan narrates, in fact, this is one of the sons of Siddiq Hasan Khan Rahmatullah alayh, who wrote a biography of his father called Ma'athar Siddiqi. Ma'athar Siddiqi, the athar or the stories of Siddiq Hasan Khan. He narrates in this book that my grandfather was asked by Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed Rahmatullah alayh, what did you do with the wealth of your father? Your father is a multi-millionaire, man. And we need money for this campaign, this movement we have started, to liberate the Muslim lands from the Sikhs. Okay? And the British were tacitly supporting the movement. The British, the colonial government in you see the reason now a lot of people ask this question, and they were asked this question at that time when they started the movement, that why don't you fight the British? They are occupiers, they are, occupying this was Mughal land. The British have come to occupy this land by force, by cunning, by deception, by causing people to fight each other. So what you're going to do? Their response was that the Muslims are living in peace in these lands. The British, they do not get involved in our religious affairs. We have Adhan, we have Salah, we have Eid, we have all the Sha'air of Islam firmly established. The British are not fighting us for our deen. Okay? They are not. But with the Sikhs in the Punjab, they are attacking Islam. They have stopped, the Badshahi Mosque, the biggest mosque in India, the Lahore Mosque, it was turned into stables. It was completely sealed. And it was later on given to the Muslims by the British when they took Lahore from the Sikhs. So this question was asked. They said, for us, the bigger problem is that, okay, and if the British start to attack our religion, our institutions, if they start to jeopardize our, religious values, then we can think about it, we can do something about it. But now they were asked this question. So Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi's father was asked by Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed that what we going to, where's that money? Your father's money. Your father is he's a Nawab. And father of Siddiq Hasan Khan was given this, the grandfather of Siddiq Hasan Khan was given this title, Nawab Bahadur Salar Jung, Anwar Jung. He had a big title in Hyderabad. So Sayyid Ahmad asked him, the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, where is that money? He said, I cannot take that money for two reasons. Number one, my father belongs to the Shia school of thought, and I do not believe that I can inherit from him. I cannot take viratha from him. I don't believe I can. Okay? And another issue is that I don't know how my father has accumulated that fund, whether it is haram or halal, I don't know. Okay? But if it's haram for me, then I can't take it. And if it's halal for me, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me a lot better wealth than that material wealth. Allah has given me the wealth of ilm, of knowledge, of iman, and I'm happy with that. So Sayyid Ahmad was surprised to hear this response. So he left this wealth. So in 1837 this man died, rahmatullah alayh, leaving his wife and two sons and daughters in poverty. No money, nothing. Completely deprived of anything from the grandfather in Hyderabad. So they're living in poverty. And those were difficult times. The first part of the 19th century in India was difficult time. So even though a lot of people loved the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, they could not practically financially help the family. So the mother of Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, she went through a lot of difficulties trying to educate this son. Okay, the other son was older, he was also educated, he was also a scholar, but he also died young at the age of 30. So Siddiq Hasan Khan was, as a young child, taught by the local Imam. The Quran he read with him, and then he read some Persian texts like Gulistan and Bostan, which are collections of a very famous Persian poet, Shaykh Sa'di al-Shirazi. His poetical collections were taught in India throughout the Madaris to teach Persian language to the students. So Gulistan and Bostan were taught, and Diwan of Hafiz Shirazi, also another poet of the Persian language, for wisdom, for better skills in Persian language. So he was taught these basic texts as a child. Then he grew up and he started traveling. Even though he was poor, he was in utter poverty, he had no penny in it, no money. So he was being, taken around by the friends of his father. Okay? And Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, he himself states in his autobiography that I was aware that I am Sayyid. Okay? And I knew that I have to uphold that standard of being a Sayyid, being a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, I cannot just behave like a beggar. Although there were times that we were so stressed because of financial strains, I didn't go to people begging them for money. He said, I never begged anyone for anything in my life. He writes in his autobiography. So one of his father's friends took him to a place called Farrukhabad. He studied with some scholars there, and then he was taken to a place called Kanpur, where he studied with some ulama. And then another man, when Siddiq Hasan Khan was in his late teens, possibly nearly 20 years old or 19 years old, another friend of his father called Mufti Kallu, this is a funny name, he took him to Delhi to study with the big ulama. Okay? So Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, he went to the city of Delhi and he stayed with the friends of his father, and he studied with the Mufti of Delhi called Mufti Sadruddin, a very, very famous man, a very, very famous prominent figure in Delhi. He knew the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, as we know, we have talked about him. He knew his father. He knew he was a great man, so he wanted to help this child learn Islamic knowledge. So he facilitated a stay for him in Delhi. He remained in Delhi for 2 years with this man, and he studied with him. He studied basic texts of Usul al-Fiqh, and he covered parts of Sahasita, and he memorized other texts, and then he gained an ijaza from Mufti Sadruddin. At the same time, Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh met prominent ulama in Delhi, such as Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dehlavi rahmatullah alayh. He had a meeting with him. He also met the opponents. Fazlul Haq Khairabadi was another scholar who was an opponent of this particular thought Siddiq Hasan Khan was inclined to. He also met them. He met poets like Mirza Ghalib. Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh had sittings with the poet Mirza Ghalib. In fact, one of the stories narrated by his own son, Ali Hasan Khan, the son of Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, who wrote this biography, Ma'athar Siddiqi, he narrates that his father went to Mirza Ghalib's house, the poet, and without announcing his intention to see him, he went to his house abruptly. And Ghalib was there, and he knew him, of course. He said, now that you have come to my house without warning me, I cannot, because Ghalib himself was under financial strains for all his life. He was like that. So he said, I cannot host you, be hospitable towards you with food or something like that, because you've come without announcing, but I will treat you with my poetry. So there were certain poetical verses in Urdu he recited for Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh. So he met people like Ibrahim Zoq, who was the court poet of the last Mughal emperors, for the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar. So Siddiq Hasan Khan also visited the Mughal court, the last Mughal court, because he was the last Mughal king, Bahadur Shah Zafar, after the Indian mutiny which took place in 1857. Not long after this visit to Delhi, he was deposed from his power and he was sent to Burma as a prisoner. So Siddiq Hasan Khan went to his court, met the Umara and the Nawabs and other princes. But he never had any attraction towards that. He also states in his autobiography that these people never attracted me. These people with money, with power, with pomp and glitter, they never attracted me. I loved the company of the ulama. So he went through, he was an avid reader. He read extensively, day and night, non-stop. All his life was reading and collecting books. As a young man, then he met the successors of Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed and Shah Ismail Shaheed, the people I talked about, those who initiated the movement against the Sikhs. After the Sikhs were defeated by the British, the movement was carried on by two brothers called Maulana Inayat Ali and Maulana Wilayat Ali. Those two individuals, Siddiq Hasan Khan met them in person, and of course they knew his father, so they greeted him and they advised him. One of them, Maulana Wilayat Ali, advised him that you must read Bulughul Maram. Bulughul Maram, you must read it. So Siddiq Hasan Khan narrates that I took that advice very seriously, and he ended up writing a commentary, Allahu Akbar, a sharh of Bulughul Maram, which is very popular among the ulama even today. So now these were his early days. He came back to his house 2 years later, spent 2 years, important years in Delhi, having met so many ulama, scholars, taken knowledge from them, he came back to Kannauj, to his family. And he realized his family is in utter poverty, he has to do something. So now his time, I was talking about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Yeah, he went to the state of Bhopal seeking a job. Listen carefully now. This is the same state where he became the king. Yes? He went there seeking a job. Any job. Because he's a poor man. He has knowledge of the deen, he has knowledge of Arabic, he has knowledge of Persian, he has knowledge of Urdu, he's a good clerk, he's a good secretary, he can write, read, all these things, administrative jobs he can do. So he went there, so he met the Madar al-Maham of the state. Madar al-Maham was the title of the prime minister. He was the equivalent of the prime minister. Okay, Madar al-Maham, his name was Shaykh Jamaluddin, rahmatullah alayhi. Shaykh Jamaluddin was a student of Muhammad Ishaq, Muhaddis Dehlavi rahmatullah alayhi, who was a successor of Shah Abdul Aziz in Delhi. So he had taken knowledge directly from these people. So through that reference, Jamaluddin knew the father of Siddiq Hasan Khan, greeted him into Bhopal, and he said, okay, inshallah, I will get you a job. So he got him a job for 30 rupees per month. How much? 30 rupees per month. So Siddiq Hasan Khan was given a clerical or an administrative job in the state, within the state apparatus of Bhopal, as a common servant. You can call him a common servant. Okay, so 30 rupees was not much. 30 rupees is like 1 rupee a day. 1 rupee a day. And how much was his grandfather getting in Hyderabad? Do you remember? How much was it? $500,000 rupees every year. How much is that a month? Huh?
It's around 40,000.
40,000 rupees per month. 30 rupees and 40,000 rupees. Allahu Akbar. So Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, now he's not happy because the 30 rupees cannot feed him and his mother and his sisters back home in Kannauj. So he's very disturbed. And how old is he now? 22 years old. He's 22 years old when he went to Bhopal, and this is the year 1854. In the year 1854, when he went for a job in the state of Bhopal. So he's nearly 22, 23 years old. And what happens while he's doing this job? He has a debate with another scholar in Bhopal whose name was, I forgot his full name, but his name was Chiriyakoti, Abdul Karim Chiriyakoti. Okay, the debate was, now 22 years old, Siddiq Hasan Khan had a debate with an established scholar in Bhopal on the issue of hookah. You know what hookah is? Shisha. People smoke shisha today. It's a big fitna today as well. Yeah, he had a debate on whether it is permissible or not permissible. So the debate became very charged. Passions were high. So Siddiq Hasan Khan lost his support in the state apparatus. What is this young boy, 22 years old, he's debating with him? Yallah, go. You lose your job. So he's gone. He lost his job. The job he had, he lost it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Now he is without any money. He goes back. Now he has his knowledge. He's still reading. During all of this, he's still reading. He's not stopping. He's doing his knowledge. He's acquiring his knowledge. He's reading books as much as he can. Because he's a poor man. He can't buy books. So wherever he finds a book, he starts reading. Okay? He's never stopping. So he goes back to his family. And then he's in trouble. And when he's in Kannauj, the Begum, Sikandar Jahan Begum, I mentioned, the one who went for Hajj, and she wrote an account of Hajj, she sent him a letter calling him back. Come back. We will hire, because even those few months, 8 months he worked for the first time for the state of Bhopal, and people knew his ability. They realized, some people, of course, he had, because of his knowledge and his passion for Islam, he had managed to get enemies within the state apparatus. Okay? Because he was a sincere man, he was not a hypocrite. He would tell people what he thinks. So she asked him to come back because she had seen him working. He came back, and this time he was not allowed to see the Begum, by the court, intruders, or you can call them conspirators. They did not allow him to see the Begum. So in a state of disappointment, he went to another state called the state of Tonk. Okay, this was also governed by a Muslim ruler, and who also knew the father of Siddiq Hasan. He gave him a job for again 50 rupees per month, stay in Tonk and work for me. So he stayed with him for 8 months and did not like that job and didn't like that place. Maybe he couldn't read there, or maybe there was something not right about the job. So he asked him for a short period of a break, 4 months. So he went back to Bhopal and he managed to see the Begum again, because when he was in Tonk, he received a letter from the Prime Minister Jamaluddin and the Begum again to come back. So he went back to the state of Bhopal, and this time he joined the state again. The Begum, she welcomed him and she gave him a bigger task now, and the task was now to write a history of Bhopal. She knew this young man, Siddiq Hasan, is a learned man. He's well versed in Persian, in the Arabic language, in the Urdu language. So he will now, by the grace of Allah, write the history of Bhopal, the state of Bhopal, all the rulers. So he got the job, and then he was given 50 rupees per month wage. So during this period, Siddiq Hasan Khan himself, in his autobiography, which is titled Ibqa'ul Minan wal Mihan. Ibqa'ul Minan wal Mihan is like an autobiography he has written about himself. It is in Urdu, unfortunately not available in any other language. It is a fascinating text, Allahu Akbar. He has basically copied Imam Shahrani, like Imam Shahrani also wrote a book titled Al-Minan, which is his autobiography. So Siddiq Hasan Khan copied the same usloob and wrote an autobiography about himself called Ibqa'ul Minan wal Mihan, and it is a fascinating piece of work, Allahu Akbar. When I was reading it, I was getting inspiration from it, because he's talking about his struggles, his virtues, and his weaknesses. He's saying, I am a sinner, I'm this. So he's very humble. Humility ends on this man, Allahu Akbar. He said, I do not want my titles, I don't care about them, I don't care about this money. Allah has blessed me with it for some purpose, and Allah is maybe doing a purpose through me, but I don't want these things. I am happy with my iman, my deen. And he said the best part, Allahu Akbar, in the biography states that the best part of my life was what? Which I'm going to just talk about in due course. So before he was hired for the second time, the Indian Mutiny happened in 1857. The revolt in India. The revolt in India happened, and in this revolt, Allahu Akbar, a lot of destruction happened. The town of Kannauj was also raided and destroyed. So Siddiq Hasan Khan had to run back to Kannauj and rescue his family. So he took his family to another city. He went to Farrukhabad. There they suffered poverty again. This is before the Begum hired him again to write the history of Bhopal. This happened before that. Okay, so during this period, Siddiq Hasan Khan also writes in his autobiography, Rahmatullah alayh, that there was a time I only had one undergarment to wear. Are you listening? Only had one undergarment to wear, which had patches on it. And there were times, for days, we had to live on dry bread. There was nothing else to eat. Me, my mother and my sisters had to live on dry bread. Allahu Akbar. And this is after this he was hired by the Begum to write the history of Bhopal. Now, when he was working for the state, he became a favorite of the Begum. The Begum saw him that he's a hard worker. This guy is absolutely dedicated to his work, and he does not give any excuse to his opponents, people who want to pick on him. Okay, and this is what he is talking about later on in his autobiography. The best part of my life was not when I became the Nawab, when I got married to the Begum of Bhopal. He said the best part was that time when I was in poverty. Allahu Akbar. He said when I was in poverty, my iman was strong. And he said when I have this money, I'm sitting on the throne, I'm a king, my iman is in danger. He goes, there is too much around me for me to distract me from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But nevertheless, he basically started to work for this Begum. So the Begum didn't actually know who he was. So she was told by some outsiders that this man is a great man. He comes from a great family. His family is well known in India. He belongs to this family. Don't look at his poverty. Just because he's working for you, he's a poor worker, he's doing a job for you. Don't think that he's from the street. He comes from this great family. his grandfather is probably richer than you are in Hyderabad. So the Begum changed. Her attitude towards him changed. So he started to, favor him more and more, and she, because of his family and because of his hard work, she gave him more and more influence and higher posts. Cut the long story short, this Begum died in the year 1868. Begum Sikandar Jahan. She died in 1868. Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah writes about her that she was very shrewd politically. She was a very sharp woman and very sharp tongue. She had a very sharp tongue. She was very, she would easily get angry, but he said that she would be angry with everyone except me. When she would look at me, her anger, because she knew who I was and what my services are, she would not get angry with me. But he goes, I was very disturbed by her anger at times. She was very, very harsh and very sharp as far as her tongue was concerned. So she died in 60. Who succeeds her? This woman called Begum Shah Jahan, her daughter. She had already been married previously, and she had children from the previous marriage, and one of those children were her daughters. One of her daughters, Sultan Jahan. So when she was put on the throne in 1868 as the ruler of the state of Bhopal, she became the ruler, and the British announced that her daughter is her heir apparent. She will succeed the mother, Sultan Jahan. So in 1868, she was advised by the British, because her first husband died, I forgot his name. Nevertheless, she was advised by the British to get married again so that your husband can help you in your work. By this time, Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi was already married. How was he married? He was proposed to by the Prime Minister himself for his daughter. So the Prime Minister of the state, because Siddiq Hasan Khan was a hard worker, a man of good character, muttaqi, zahid, praying diligently, doing his job diligently, his character was so attractive. So the Prime Minister looked at him, Jamaluddin, the one I mentioned, Madar al-Maham, he offered his daughter to him, who was a widow, in marriage to Siddiq Hasan Khan. Siddiq Hasan Khan accepted the proposal, and they got married in the masjid. Allahu Akbar. And he had 4 children with this woman. Her name was Zakiya, and he had 2 sons. One was called Nurul Hasan bin Siddiq Hasan rahmatullah alayh, and he was the older son. The younger son was Ali Hasan rahmatullah alayh, who wrote this particular biography of his father, Ma'athir Siddiqui. He was born of that marriage. So now Siddiq Hasan Khan is already married, and he's married to the Prime Minister's daughter. His financial situation is increased considerably, and he's now, as far as his reading and writing is concerned, he's continuing with that. He's still writing his shuruhat and his tafasir, and on the Arabic language, all the books on hadith, all of that is continuing. His scholarly activity hasn't stopped. He's doing his job, at the same time he's doing his religious studies. So he brought his mother and his sisters also to Bhopal to live with him, but within 6 months they died. The mother as well as the sisters, they died in Bhopal after looking at his prosperity. And Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi, he states that I love my parents more than anything else. He said, I did not get the opportunity to serve my father. I was 5 when my father died, and even if he was alive today, I would put everything on his feet. I would put everything in front of him, and my mother I could serve to the best of my ability. And when she died, I did the janaza and I gave her kafan, and I kissed her and put her in the grave. Basically, he narrates that very painfully about his parents, rahmatullah alayh. So this man now, having become the husband of the Prime Minister's daughter, is a very hard-working man. So the Begum now is a widow, and he is a private secretary of the Begum. Because he has now moved up within the state apparatus, because of his hard work, he's been promoted, and he's a private secretary of the Begum directly, who's a widow. Okay, now Begum is seeing this man and his honesty. She can see how honest and sincere this man is. And she's now seeking opinions from him in state affairs. She's asking him to give opinions in state affairs, and she starts to do things he advises. For example, he's a very wise man and a very dedicated man. So the British came to the Begum and they said, why don't you get married? You know, you're a young woman. She was 30, almost 30, 29 at the time. Why don't you get married? You're a widow, and your husband will help you in running the state. So she sought advice from her family members. They told her, she said, I think Siddiq Hasan Khan is the best candidate. Allahu Akbar. Can you believe it now? This man, how much was he how much was he receiving when he joined the state of protest? 30 rupees per month, right? As a normal standard clerk, you know, what we call munshi, you know, someone who is actually recording deeds and things like that. Sorry?
Chaprasi.
No, chaprasi is something else. Chaprasi is a god. Chaprasi is, that's something else. No, he was a lot more educated than that. He only got that job because he was an educated man. So the Begum says, this is the man. Now, the Begum came from Pashtun family, the Afghans. And I won't even bite my words, and this is the reality. Some of these Afghans and Pashtuns are very racist. They are very racist. They can, you know, they would rather kill the daughter than give her to a non-Pathan. There are some tribes like that. There are some tribes like that even today. If a Punjabi from Punjab goes goes and asks for a Pathan girl in the Pashtun area, they probably kill him for asking. How can you even ask? How dare you even ask? There are Pashtun tribes like that, even today. So she came from that Afghan, because Dost Muhammad Khan, the founder of the dynasty, was a Pashtun, was a Pathan. Okay, so the Begum, of course, came from the same descendants. So when she proposed this idea, they were how can you even think of getting married to a non-Pathan? How can you get your husband from Pashtun areas? Get any Pathan, because this is what they would do. They would usually they would bring people from Afghanistan to get married to the ruler. This happened to her daughter. Shah Jahan Begum's daughter, from the ex-husband, they brought her husband from Afghanistan. He came from there as a young man. So they kept him in the palace, they nurtured him, he grew up in the palace, and then they got them married. Okay? So they didn't like the idea, but she said, he is a Sayyid. You're Pathan, but he is a Sayyid. He is a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ. He's better than you in descendants. So you're telling me about Pathans, but he's Sayyid. So I want to get married to him. So she got married to him. There was a darbar held in 1871, public ceremony. Begum Shah Jahan got married to Siddiq Hasan Khan, and now he was given the title Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, Amirul Mulk Wala Jah. This was the title given to him as the husband of the queen. Okay, so effectively he became a king. He was not the direct runner of the state. He was not the direct king. It was the queen. You know, like we have Duke of Edinburgh here, who is the husband of Queen Elizabeth. He's not the king, is he? Although he's the husband of the queen, he's not called the king. He is the consort. You know, he is the husband of the queen. Likewise, that same position was given to Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh. Now, Allahu Akbar, you know, because he was a scholar at heart. And before he got married to the Begum in 1871, he went for Hajj in 1868. 3 years before he got married to the Begum, he went for Hajj in 1868, and he went through Yemen. In 1868, when he went for Hajj, he met scholars in Yemen on the way, in Hudaydah. So he met scholars like Sheikh Hussein bin Mohsen al-Ansari al-Yamani, took hadith knowledge from them. He himself, personally, in his own hand, copied many books while he stayed in Yemen for a few days. Over a week, he stayed in Yemen, and he was copying books non-stop in his own hand. This is how much he loved knowledge. And then he went to Makkah, he did his Hajj rites, and he went to Medina. He had to wait 20 days, as I mentioned earlier, because the path was very dangerous. So he stayed in Medina for some days, and he came back to Makkah, and 8 months later, in 1869, he returned to Bhopal to resume his services in the state. 1871, he gets married to the Begum. The Begum proposed to him, and now he becomes Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. So the Begum demands from the British that he is given the same titles that were given to her previous husband. So Amir al-Mulk Wala Jah, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, was the title given to him. Then she also demanded from the British that he should be given the honor of 17 guns salute. You know what that means? So every time he leaves Bhopal, 17 guns are fired. Okay, what we call cannons. They are fired. This was how can I say? Respected. A thing to honor rulers. Okay, and as every time he came back to Bhopal, again a 17-gun salute was given to him by the state. So he became a very powerful figure. Okay, and because of this power, a lot of jealousy came in. So those same factions, those who were against this marriage in the first place, the Pashtun factions, they went against him. And they started to now blame him for basically overpowering the Begum and running the state through proxy. Running the state himself through proxy. So he's using the Begum for his ambitions. When we study his history, we come to realize that he was not a man of greed. He didn't want any power. In fact, he writes in his autobiography that I insisted that Begum should not ask the British for these titles for me. I don't want these titles. I do not want these titles, Amir al-Mulk, Wala Jah or Nawab. I don't want these titles. The Begum insisted herself to honor her husband that he should have these titles so that he can have more influence. In fact, he also narrates in his autobiography that Begum went as far as to tell him that I will now request from the British to make you the permanent ruler. You become the king and I become your queen. Instead of you being an honorary ruler, you become the real ruler, practical ruler. He said no. He begged the Begum not to do that. He said, I don't want that. I don't want that for myself. I have other ambitions in life. I don't want to take away power from your family and from your children. Now the daughter of the Begum, Sultan Jahan, because she had a daughter from the previous husband who was announced as heir apparent after her mother. So after Shah Jahan would be Sultan Jahan. She became very agitated about this situation because Begum Shah Jahan had announced her intention openly that I am trying to have a son with Siddiq Hasan Khan. Okay, I will have a son with him and that son will become the ruler of the state. So Sultan Jahan, she started to conspire. In fact, Siddiq Hasan Khan, rahmatullah alayh, he even narrates in one of his writings that my wife was given certain medicines and after that she couldn't have children with me. And they tried all kind of things. So the jealousy reached such a high level that these people, because now there were two factions within the state of Bhopal. One was the Pashtun faction, which was supporting Begum Sultan Jahan, the daughter of the Begum, who was the heir apparent, because she was the daughter of a Pashtun. Because the ex-husband of the Begum Shah Jahan was a Pathan, a Pashtun. The other faction was Begum Shah Jahan, her husband Siddiq Hasan Khan, and their supporters. Okay. Now Siddiq Hasan Khan, rahmatullah alayhi, after he became Nawab, he was given a Jagir, again an estate which had the income of 24,000 rupees. And after that, immediately, the Begum took the Jagir, the estate of her previous husband, and even gave that to her new husband. And now his income, yearly income, came up to 75,000 rupees. So how did now Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan use his newly acquired wealth? He states in his autobiography, I never asked the Begum for a penny and never begged her for anything, and every single penny I spent on my religious or my literary activities, they were spent from my own pocket. So if the Begum gave me something, I took it. Okay, I accepted it, but I never asked for anything. So at one point, Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi, Fathul Bari was unknown in India. It was an unknown text in India, completely unknown, right? So what he did was, he got a makhtuta, a handwritten copy of Fathul Bari from Yemen. He acquired it for a lot of money. He paid thousands of rupees for that particular copy of Fathul Bari, and parts of it were written by Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani himself in his own hand. This is what Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi states in his autobiography. So what he did was, he sent that copy to Egypt, and he spent 50,000 rupees. That was a lot of money. It would amount to over £1 million today. 50,000 rupees, he sent that money for this work to be published. And then these copies came to India for the first time in the history of India. Only the scholars only heard the name. They knew that there is a commentary written by a man called Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani on Sahih al-Bukhari. They had no idea what it looks like. It came to India and he distributed it free of charge. One of the copies even came to my ancestors. We have a copy of that particular book, that published book by Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan in our ancestral library, Fathul Bari. So this was the first time when this book was published. Then he also published Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, distributed it free of charge to the ulama and students. He also published Nail al-Atar, the works of Imam Shawkani. So who were the people who influenced Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan's religious thought? He himself narrates in his autobiography that I have been directly influenced by Ahmed and Muhammad. You know, Ahmed and Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. People think Ahmed and Muhammad. Many Ahmads and many Muhammads. So who are many Ahmad? Who are many Ahmads? Ahmad, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ahmad, Shah Waliullah. Yes? Ibn Taymiyyah's Ahmad, Shah Waliullah's Ahmad. Okay. Then who's Muhammad? Shawkani. Right? Imam Shawkani. Then Muhammad Ismail al-Dehlavi rahmatullah alayhi. Okay, so he gave many names of the ulama who influenced him directly. So Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi was a product of the works of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, Imam al-Shawkani rahmatullah alayhi, Shah Waliullah, Imam Ghazali, Imam Sayyuti. So these are the people who made him what he was. His position was very nuanced. It was very balanced. He was a strong proponent of Amal bil Hadith. He was the strongest proponent in the 19th century for Amal bil Hadith. What is Amal bil Hadith? Giving precedence to Hadith over the schools of thought, 4 schools of thought. For example, Hanafis, Malikis, Shafi'is and Hanbalis. So he gave, he proposed the view in India that we should all give precedence to Hadith over schools of thought, because sometimes the Hadith contradicts the fatwa of the Imam. In that case, we should leave the Imam aside and follow the ultimate Imam Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because of this, he had a lot of enmity towards the Ahnaf in the subcontinent. And to this day, some Hanafi scholars, unfortunately, some of whom haven't even read his works. They haven't even read his works because of his stances. They attack him unjustly, without having studied him. So he was a man who was called غير مقلد, who does not follow a school of thought. And he said, I do not follow a school of thought rigidly, rather I follow the dalil. So we have to do amal bil hadith. This is what a Muslim has to do. He wrote against the bid'at and shirkiyat in India, for example, people going to saints and their graves. He wrote against that, and he used Shah Waliullah's books and works for that. He used Imam Shawkani's works. Imam Shawkani had the strongest influence on him, more than anyone else. He was a huge fan of Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani. He was a huge fan of Imam al-Shawkani. And this is why he published Imam al-Shawkani's books and distributed them free of charge. Nail al-Atar was his favorite. Nail al-Atar, and he even copied Imam Shawkani's books into his own language. He wrote works in Persian and Urdu, taking knowledge from Imam Shawkani. And he had provided patronage to scholars from Yemen to come and live in Bhopal and teach students in India. This was one of the biggest revolutions of Hadith studies in India. Allahu Akbar. So who did he bring from Bhopal? Shaykh Zainul Abidin, who was the Mufti of Bhopal, okay, Yemeni. Shaykh Hussain bin Muhsin al-Ansari al-Yamani, who was a direct student of Ali bin Ahmad bin Muhammad bin Ali Shawkani, who was the son of Imam Shawkani. So Shaykh Hussain was a direct student of the son of Imam Shawkani. Imam Shawkani died when Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh was not born. What is the year Imam Shawkani died? I think it was the year 1836, if I'm not mistaken. It was 1836. If you can check, if you can confirm that, when Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh was only 4 years old. So he couldn't meet Imam Shawkani. But when he went to Hudaydah,
he was 5 years old, I think. He was 5 years old. When Shawkani
passed away?
Yeah.
So 1836. It should be 1836. This is what I read. 1836 is Imam Shawkani, Muhammad bin Ali Shawkani, a great scholar who passed away. So he influenced Siddiq Hasan Khan a lot. So Siddiq Hasan Khan, he brought these scholars to Bhopal from Yemen to teach in India the Hadith studies. And the greatest of all of them was Shaykh Hussain bin Muhsin al-Ansari al-Yamani. This was a man who was even in correspondence with my ancestors. We have a letter written by him in his hand. He sent this letter to my great-grandfather's grandfather, whose name was Shaykh Minhajuddin bin Sirajuddin bin Hafiz Mustaqim rahmatullah alayhim. He wrote a letter to him explaining that the Nawab has died. This was in the year 1308. To be exact, 1890. This letter was written by Shaykh Hussain to my great-grandfather's grandfather. He told him that the Nawab has died, and Nawab used to provide us with patronage. Yani he was funding our activities. 60 rupees were coming monthly from Nawab's own treasury, and 40 rupees were given by the state of Bhopal to us. But now that has stopped, and we are in financial jeopardy. So we need some support. Basically, this is what the Shaykh wrote to my great-grandfather's grandfather, rahmatullah alayh. This man, and I'm going to finish now because the lecture has gone on for very long. I'm summarizing now. This man, Shaykh Hussain bin Muhsin al-Ansari al-Yamani, was the teacher of two great scholars who wrote two great commentaries on two great collections of hadith. One is Tuhfatul Ahwazi, is titled Tuhfatul Ahwazi, written by a man called Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Mubarak Furi. He wrote this commentary on Sunan al-Tirmidhi, which was written in India. He was a direct student. Shaykh Abdurrahman Mubarak Furi was a direct student of Shaykh Hussain bin Muhsin al-Ansari al-Yamani. The hard work of Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi in manifestation. Allahu Akbar. Another commentary written in India was the commentary written on Sunan of Abu Dawud, and it is called Awn al-Ma'bud, which was written by Shaykh Shams al-Haq al-Azim Abadi, also a direct student of Shaykh Hussain bin Muhsin al-Ansari al-Yamani, who was brought by Siddiq Hasan Khan to Bhopal to teach the students of Hadith. He was so dedicated to the science of Hadith. Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan himself has written no less than 62 works on Hadith alone. 62 works on Hadith alone. And in totality, he is thought to have written close to 250 works. Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayhi himself in his autobiography, he writes that I have written almost every single Islamic science. Almost every single Islamic science. And he said anyone who reads all my books is an alim kamil. He will be a complete scholar of Islam. Anyone who reads all my works will be a complete scholar of Islam, because I have not left any of the sciences of Islam unturned. Allahu Akbar. Over 250 works. I sometimes think, how did he do it? He was working for the state. he was reading, he was writing, and he would buy books from all over the world. He had agents running around the world buying books for him. Sometimes he bought books for thousands of rupees. And he himself narrates in his autobiography that sometimes I know people are robbing me, they're ripping me off, but I would give them the money and get the book from them. Allahu Akbar. I feel the same sometimes, because I'm trying to buy, I buy makhtutat. I buy books from, mainly from Pakistan. And sometimes, mashallah, we have these Pathan friends, most of them are the biggest market of manuscripts is in Peshawar, and they come and sell. And we have very interesting interactions with them. So I have bought many important works in the past, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he was in a similar situation. So he wrote that I used to buy these books, and he accumulated a library of very, very rare works, as old as 800 years old books, right? Some books written in the hands of the Aimma themselves. Like he stated that I have a handwritten copy of Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani's Fathul Bari, and Imam Shawkani's works written in his own hand he possessed. He bought them in Hudaydah in Yemen. Allahu Akbar. He was so supportive of the science of Hadith that he announced that anyone who memorizes Sahih al-Bukhari, I will give him 1,000 rupees. 1,000 rupees at that time was close to 1,000,000 rupees today. 1,000 rupees today, in today's value, it would be 1,000,000 rupees. It's like 10,000 pounds today. 10,000 pounds. He announced that I will give 1,000 rupees to the student who memorizes Sahih al-Bukhari. And those who memorized parts of it, he had a wadifa for them, 30 rupees a month. So anyone who starts memorizing, not memorized completely, anyone who starts memorizing Sahih al-Bukhari, there was a wadifa. What do we call wadifa in English? Sorry? No.
Monthly income. Monthly income.
Monthly, how can we say? Stipend. Stipend is the word. So there will be a monthly stipend of 30 rupees for the student who is memorizing Sahih al-Bukhari. He has to do nothing. No work. Sit and memorize Sahih al-Bukhari. Allahu Akbar. 30 rupees a month. And then there were two students who were able to memorize the entirety of Bukhari, and they took 1,000 rupees reward each from him. Allahu Akbar. So this Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, rahmatullah alayh, Allahu Akbar. The lecture has gone on for very long. My intention was to do it in 40 minutes, and I still haven't done justice to his legacy. Wallahi, ikhwan, my brothers and sisters, I have not done justice to this man's legacy. There's a lot more to talk about him. If I started talking about his works, the works he has produced on tafsir, on the Arabic language, on the Persian language, or on the science of hadith, on the science of usul al-fiqh, on 4 schools or history, for example, I would be here for 10 days talking about those books. Okay, some of his books run into easily 1,000 pages. Okay, some are pamphlets as small as 2-3 pages. Okay, this book I have with me right now is one of his books, which was published in Constantinople, in Istanbul, when he was alive in 1870s. The date is 1296 Hijri when this book was published in Constantinia. It stays there in Istanbul. Okay, during the Ottoman period, is called Nashwatus Sakran. Okay, the book is called Nashwatus Sakran, and it's in Arabic, and it was published in Constantinople. So his books, while he was alive, were being published in Iraq, in Egypt, in Constantinople, and in India. He was a well-established authority on Islamic sciences within his life. So we need to explore more about his life. We need to study him more and more so that we can understand him more. What happened to him politically? Very quickly, I want to talk about that. In 1881, he was accused of promoting sedition or rebellion against the British government in India. This conspiracy was initiated by his opponents at the court. Remember, I told you when he married the Begum, he became excessively very powerful. He used his influence for the spread of Islam, okay, for publishing books, buying books, accumulating libraries, and then starting madaris. He established many madaris in Bhopal, okay, with different names. He established a printing press called a Siddiqiyya and Maktaba Shahjahan and Maktaba Siddiqiyya, where he was publishing his own works and the works of Imam Shawkani and other Aimma of Islam. So there was a lot of jealousy against him. So the other faction, the Pashtun faction, which was backing the daughter of Begum Shah Jahan, they started to conspire against him. So they started to accuse him of things. First they accused him of, overpowering the Begum. Some of them went as far as A'udhu Billah Thumma A'udhu Billah, accusing him of having an affair with the Begum. That's why they got married. This is the slander, subhanallah. And when you read the works of this man and the works of the Begum, because Begum became a scholar. The Begum herself, Begum Shah Jahan, with his company, because she lived with him, she herself became a scholar. There are books written by him. Begum Shah Jahan has written books. One of them is on the affairs of women, how women should live as, we have a book nowadays, we have a book called Ideal Muslimah.
Yeah.
Okay? Her book was called Tuhfatun Nisa. It was called Tuhfatun Nisa, a gift for women. She wrote all the Islamic rulings pertaining to the matters of women in this book, Allahu Akbar. She became a scholar herself. So how can you accuse people like that of doing something like that? Allahu Akbar. So these people had no morality. And the Begum became very, very, very angry with her daughter, Sultan Jahan, who was being used by these racist Pashtun factions on the other side, and by the British to depose the Nawab. So the Nawab, after publishing thousands of books, Islamic literature, spreading it all over India and beyond, he's sending his books to Iraq, Egypt, Constantinople. So the British became worried, and this was a very disturbing period in India. This was post-Indian mutiny period, 1857. Remember what happened? There was an India-wide rebellion against the British government. Muslims were blamed. Muslims were blamed, and Muslims were the ones who caused this rebellion. To such an extent that in 1871, the same year when Nawab married the Begum, a book was published by a man called William Wilson Hunter. William Wilson Hunter published this book called The Indian Muslimans. The Indian Muslimans, and the title of the book is that Are They Bound by Their Religion to Rebel Against the Queen? This is the title of the book. I have the actual first edition in my library. Indian Muslimans. And on the page 11, he states that the Muslims by default are the enemies of the British state. Allahu Akbar. Yani he intended to write this against the Muslims of Bengal in particular. But then he wiped everyone clean in the book. He said, all the Muslims are a threat for the British Empire. So what do you do with them? So this was the environment when Siddiq Hasan Khan's books were being published. Now when you write books on Islam, on every single science of Islam, you have to inevitably cover the topic of jihad. You have to cover the topic of jihad, right? So Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan published books with chapters on jihad, and as a scholar of Islam, he's publishing academic works on a topic of Islam, right? So the opponents who really wanted to get rid of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, because they felt threatened that if the Begum has a son with him, khalas, game over for them, right? He will become the king, right? So they want to remove him quickly. So in 1881, they brought an accusation against him of sedition, that he's trying to promote rebellion in India. He's publishing all these books free of charge, and now look at this. These books contain chapters on jihad. And jihad means against Britain. But Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah had already clarified his position on India in a number of different works. Even 1857 rebellion, he did not regard it as jihad. He states that jihad has certain conditions. It has a set definition. Jihad does not mean destruction, terrorism, killing of innocent people, killing of men and women and children, right? So he stated that. So he said that Indian rebellion was not jihad, it was something else, because British women, British children, all of these people were targeted and they were killed indiscriminately, to an extent that Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dehlavi rahmatullah, one of the teachers of Siddiq Hasan Khan, during the rebellion, he found an injured English woman in the street of Delhi during the rebellion when the war was kicking. So he found this woman in the street. Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dehlavi rahmatullah, one of the pioneers of the school of Ahl-e-Hadith in India, one of the teachers of Siddiq Hasan Khan, Found this woman in the street. So he picked her up quickly and took her home. And he told the women at home to take care of this woman. She's in danger. Allahu Alam, if she was raped or she was injured, she was in a very bad state when he found her. He took her home. So those women, the women of Sayyid Nazir Hussein's family, they took care of the woman. So she stayed with him for months in the house, hiding. And if the rebels found out that he was giving refuge to a poor woman, they would have killed him as well. So he put his own life in danger. So after the rebellion was over, he took the woman back to the British and said to them, take your woman back. And they said to him, from this day on, if you are ever in trouble in India, anywhere in our domain, we will help you. Because you kept, subhanAllah, they had principles. The British, they had principles at that time. They even for one person, they would do so much. So they wrote this. And today, some opponents of the school of Ahl-e-Hadith unjustly use this incident against the ulama of Ahl-e-Hadith. Look, they were working for the British. They were like helping them. What do you do with Islamically, what do you do with an injured woman? Islamically, what does Islam say when you find an injured woman on the street who is being unjustly attacked? Islam is utterly against targeting of innocent people, civilians. This is haram in Islam, right? You cannot call it jihad. This is not jihad. This is what we call extremism and destruction and terrorism, right? Right? So what happened? Nawab, he had made his stance very clear. So those works were put in front of the British. Those who were accusing him of sedition, he said, no, look at my works. Look at them in totality. Don't look at one chapter. And one of the works that was problematic in particular, and I want to quickly talk about those works that were specifically picked on. Those works that were specifically picked on are Hidayat al-Sa'il was one work which was picked on by the opponents, that these are controversial chapters. Okay, Iqtarab al-Sa'a. Okay, Iqtarab al-Sa'a was another work which was picked on. Then Mawaiz Hasana was another work that was picked on, which had khutbahs of different individuals, different imams. Khutbahs, sermons of different imams. One of those sermons was the sermon of Muhammad Ismail al-Dehlavi rahmatullah alayh, the companion of Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed. And this sermon was a sermon on jihad, on the virtues of jihad. So they used these books against Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, and he's just promoting sedition. So the British, at first, when they looked at his services, and they said, no, he's not a man who's promoting sedition, he's simply doing his work. He's publishing works on Islam and he's distributing them. But then they were able to bring other accusations against him and accused him. So now the British started to realize the scale of his activities. Not that those activities are directly seditious or attacking British interests, but the scale of his activities became apparent to the British, that he's publishing thousands of books. He's teaching people Islam. Okay? And this was a very charged period, again late 19th century. What was happening here? The Ottomans had broken the alliance with the British because of the Turco-Russian war. When Russia attacked Turkey, the British refused to back the Turks, as they did previously. In this period, William Gladstone was the Prime Minister of Britain at the time, and he had backed off. Okay, so the Turks were very disturbed at that time. Then on top of that, the Second Afghan War, where the Muslims of India were very against that war, because Britain was fighting Afghanistan. So the Muslims of India were very much against that. So in this context, in this politically charged environment, when they looked at his works, they thought maybe he's trying to do something. Maybe he's trying to instigate some kind of, rebellion against us. Or maybe he's trying to push the Muslims to think like this. So they accused him of it. In 1885, he was deposed, cut the long story short, unjustly. And this was even acknowledged by the British afterwards. And he was put under house arrest in his palace called Noor Mahal. And he was not allowed to see the Begum in the daytime. The Begum could only come to him at night. Okay, in 1885. This happened, and he was put under house arrest. But he did not stop his literary activities, still reading and writing, and still publishing books. Even on his deathbed, Allahu Akbar, his son narrates that literally hours before he died, he asked about the translation of Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani's book, Minhajul Abidin, because he had translated it and published it. He said, what is happening about that book? They told him that the draft came, we corrected it and we sent it back. He said, Alhamdulillah. And then his son narrates that he said, what is the date today? It was the 29th of Rajab, if I'm not mistaken. It was the 29th. He said, Alhamdulillah, the month is over and our book is complete. Are you listening? This is hours before he died. He said, he made this statement. The month is over and our book is complete. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, he died, rahmatullah alayhi, in 1890. The year was 1890 when he died in his palace, Noor Mahal. And after his death, the Begum of Bhopal, Begum Shah Jahan, she fought for his rights, because in 1885, all his titles and privileges were taken away from him. His title of Nawab, Amirul Mulk Wala Jah, was taken away from him, and the privilege of 17-gun salute was also taken from him, and he was not allowed to do anything. He was under house arrest. And Lepel Griffin was the political agent in Bhopal at the time. He was the devil at the time, playing the role of the devil, who was actually filling the ears of the Viceroy of India as well, who was the ultimate ruler of India, because all of these princely states were under the dominance, or the how can I put it, under the instructions of the Viceroy. Viceroy was appointed from Britain, okay, and he would effectively rule India. And all of these princely states, before taking any political decision, they would have to consult him, send him a letter that I'm about to go to the toilet, can I go? This is how bad it was. You know, can I do this, can I do that, can I buy this land, can I give this jagir or this estate to someone I like? Yes. The Viceroy would say yes, you can, and then it would be done. So Lepel Griffin would send reports to the Viceroy that this man is seditious, we need to kill him, we need to hang him, or once we hang him, or we exile him to Andaman Islands. It was called Blackwater. Blackwater, Kala Pani, was the punishment they would give at people, rebels at that time. They would be sent to this island, Andaman Islands. You know where they are? In the middle of the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles away. There are people who were sent there as a punishment. So the Viceroy said, no, that would be going too far. The Begum is married to him. It would be disrespectful to Begum. What we do is, we put him under house arrest. And that's what happened. And all his privileges were taken away. And he did not bemoan any of this loss. From penniless, he became the king. And then he was put under house arrest. He said, Wallahi, I have no regard for this. In fact, I will quote his words narrated in this biography, and I recommend this biography to everyone who wants to read about Siddiq Hasan Khan in the English language. It is called Life and Works of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan of Bhopal, written by Saeedullah Khan, and it is the only work in English language I am aware of which does justice to his legacy somewhat. It has flaws, of course, but it is one of the best ones out there. As for the other one, I will quickly address it, whether this should be read or not. Anyway, in the Nawab's own words, he states about the loss of these privileges, I was considering the title of the Nawab as a curse of God, and of Amir al-Mulk Walaja as an instrument of destruction on the Day of Judgment. I told the Begum again and again that I was never happy with the titles I got, but she compelled me to accept them. She once went so far as to propose to make me a permanent ruler with the permission of the British government, but I prevailed upon her and stopped her from doing so. I have got nothing to complain of because I got these titles through the Begum, and I thank God I lost them because of being loyal to her. Siddiq Hasan Khan, rahmatullah alayh, in Ibqa al-Minan wal-Mihan. Okay, so he was a man of principle. He did what he could in his power to serve the cause of Islam, and he was absolutely loyal to his loving wife, and he did his best to be as loyal as possible. Now, what about stories against him? You know, there is a recent book written by this man. I want to quickly address this. This is very, very important. Okay, if you want to read an impartial history on Siddiq Hasan Khan, when I say impartial means that who doesn't have any direct link to Siddiq Hasan Khan as a family member is Sayyidullah Khan. Okay, he was a scholar in the 70s. He wrote this book on him because this book is written by opponents, and this book is written by Siddiq Hasan Khan's own son. So you may be thinking this one is biased towards the father, this one is against the man. So why should we read them? I say read all of them and you will see exactly what the truth is. Even this one is a great biography because it gives us a lot more details than these books don't. This book was written by a man called Shahryar Khan, who is a descendant of Begum Sultan Jahan. Who is Begum Sultan Jahan? The daughter of Begum Shah Jahan Khan, who was against the mother and her husband. She was single-handedly responsible for bringing the Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan down. And the mother never spoke to her daughter again. She died very, very angry with her. Sultan Jahan even attempted a number of times to go back to her mother to get her to forgive her, but she never forgave her daughter for what she did together with those Pashtun clans and the British government. So Begum Shah Jahan never forgave her daughter. In fact, even after the death of the Nawab, the Begum went to the British and she requested that all the honors and the titles of my husband should be restored. So the British government allowed that, okay, we will call him Nawab. He will be called Nawab Amir al-Mulk Walaja even after his death. So the Begum was fighting even after her death for the rights of her husband, and she gave a lot of privileges to the sons of the Nawab from the other wife, the daughter of the Prime Minister, and they continued for some time later on. So this book was written by a man called Shahryar Khan, who is a direct descendant of Begum Sultan Jahan, who was an opponent of the Nawab. It was this lady who managed to bring down the Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan and his activities, and her mother Begum Shah Jahan never forgave her. So biography is very biased against the Nawab for the reasons already stated. So this man is alive. He is a direct descendant of Begum Sultan Jahan. His mother, Shahryar Khan's mother, is the daughter of the last Nawab called Hamidullah Khan, who was a son of Begum Sultan Jahan. So he is a great grandson of Sultan Jahan, Begum Sultan Jahan. And in this book, unfortunately, he has repeated many of these false accusations against the Nawab, and he has gone too far in these distortions. And in some cases, he hasn't provided any reference, any evidence for an accusation. So he accused the Nawab of being a greedy man who tried to hold on to power, who tried to use Begum for the rise of his family as the rulers of Bhopal and all of that. But when you look at things objectively, these accusations are not true. So he obviously took information from his own mother. His mother, this man who is the chairman of cricket board today in Pakistan, PCB, his name is Shahryar Khan. Those of you who watch cricket, he is the man, you know, Shahryar Khan, the chairman of PCB, Pakistan Cricket Board, is the one who authored this book, who is a direct descendant of Begum Sultan Jahan. His mother was this woman called Abida Sultan, who was also called Rebel Princess. She left the state of Bhopal because she had a dispute with her father Nawab Hamidullah Khan, who was the son of Begum Sultan Jahan, and she came to Pakistan. After the partition, she decided to move to Pakistan, and she struggled as a person, and this is a biography of her. This is like an autobiography where she's writing about her own struggle. Even in this book, she narrates a story that her grandmother, Begum Sultan Jahan, had agents working within the palace trying to gather evidence to go and give it to the British to attack the Nawab and remove him. Okay, she narrates an incident that Begum Shah Jahan had a case, a locked case, where she kept this evidence in lock. And if this evidence was put in front of the British, the Nawab would be doomed. Okay, he would be hanged. Okay, so, and she kept the key with her, she used to wear a belt underneath, and she had the key in there. So the key was stolen from the Begum Shah Jahan, the wife of Nawab, and those documents were stolen from the case and they were being sent to the British in a train. And by the grace of Allah, a fire, these papers or that particular carriage caught fire and all these papers were burnt to ashes. So these papers never made it to their destination. We don't know what those papers contained, but she narrates the story. So this goes to show that Begum Sultan Jahan, the daughter of Shah Jahan Begum, was doing her utmost best to destroy the Nawab and by extension her own mother. So this story is very, very biased. It is very inaccurate as far as the Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan is concerned. He has not done justice. Shahryar Khan has not done justice to the legacy of the Nawab. He was very biased in his treatment. He took the testimony of his mother and her grandmother, Begum Sultan Jahan, subsequently or consequently. So looking at this biography, he doesn't even mention in this book that he has read Ma'azir Siddiqui, the biography of the Nawab's son. He doesn't even acknowledge it. He does acknowledge this particular book, but ignores all his conclusions and all his research. Amazingly, Shahryar Khan ignores all the research and conclusions of Sayyidullah Khan for some reason. He does comment on it passingly that other historians have another view, but my view is this, and he doesn't give much evidence. So this particular history, as far as the Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan is concerned, is not trustworthy. As a history of the Begums of Bhopal, I will strongly recommend this book, no doubt. But when it comes to the section on the Nawab, it is to be thrown on the wall. Unfortunately, Shahryar Khan, may Allah guide him, has not done justice. And he openly admits to the fact that the Nawab was a religious man and he was trying to make everyone religious, and the Begum Sultan Jahan was not religious and she didn't like him for that reason. Now, he openly admits to this fact. So there is a lot more I could say in this lecture. I will end the lecture now, and hopefully you have learned a lot about this important man in our history. We will be doing more lectures in the future of similar personalities who have done great deeds for the sake of Islam and who have gone through great difficulties in due course. Finally, the Begum Shah Jahan, rahmatullahi alayha, was a great wife to the Nawab. She was loyal to him until her death. Even after he died, she put poetry in Persian language on his tomb, which breaks your heart when you read it. She was in deeply love with her husband, and she was willing to even die for him and even to give up her state for him. Rahmatullahi alayha, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her for the services she has done for Islam. The mosque she made in Woking, the Shah Jahan Mosque, may Allah reward her for that, and may Allah reward the Nawab for all the good deeds. And finally, last point, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh gave advice to his descendants in his autobiography called Ibqa al-Minan. He stated that even if you are a direct descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, that virtue alone will not take you to Jannah. So if you become Shia, or if you become one of the Ahlul Bid'ah, or if you are not practicing Islam, and this is a message for the descendants of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan rahmatullah alayh, those who may be listening to this lecture as well, because I have many friends who are direct descendants of the Nawab, and this lecture I would like to dedicate to my dear friend brother Khalid Hassan, who is a direct descendant of the Nawab, who died a couple of years back or 3 years back. Rahmatullah alayh, he was a good friend of mine, and he provided me with these books. For example, this Ma'asir Siddiqui comes from his library. It was given to me by his brother Farooq Hassan, who is alive and well. Alhamdulillah, he lives in Harrow in London. He gave me this particular book, the biography of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, written by Sayyidullah Khan. So I thank them for providing me with this material, and may Allah guide you and may Allah preserve you. May Allah give you the tawfiq to live by the principles of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. And brother Ali Shah, who is also a descendant of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, who lives in Saudi Arabia, he has also encouraged me to do this lecture. Thank you so much. So the advice of the Nawab for his descendants is that if you want to succeed in the hereafter, you must live by the tenets of Islam. You must take Islam seriously like he did, and Allah blessed him with so much. So if you want to be great, once again, like your ancestor Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, then uphold the values he upheld. And I ask you all to read his autobiography called Ibqa al-Minan, which is available in the Urdu language. I advise to read that particular autobiography written by the Nawab Sahib himself for his descendants. So this is a message for the descendants of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. Thank you so much for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.